Will Broncos country ride right through Seattle, or will the 12th man rally behind Geno Smith? We'll cover that today on Showdown coverage brought to you by Sharp Football Analysis. I'm your host, Adam Wilde, and we'll dive right into the slate. We have a 44-point over-under, not great, not terrible. We have the Broncos heading to Seattle as 6.5-point road favorites. I think that could be even higher by the time this game closes. We might get to that 7-point range. So we can we'll go right into the DraftKings lobby and leave comments below if you watch the video and enjoy FanDuel content. So I'm not going to do any FanDuel this week, but I could cover some FanDuel on next week's show if we get enough interest on that. I play predominantly on DraftKings, so we'll go there. Starting with Russell Wilson at the top. He's a little bit expensive, a little more expensive than I would like. I wrote in the article, which you'll be able to find every Monday, my Monday Night Football article on Sharp Football Analysis, that Russell Wilson is priced closer to Josh Allen, but he should be priced closer to what Matthew Stafford was on Thursday Night Showdown. Nonetheless, you kind of don't have any choice but to play Russell Wilson, given that you're going to be stacking a lot of Broncos in this game. It's going to be really hard for 2, 3, 4 Seattle guys to get there. You'll learn over the years that I will not play a 3x3 lineup. That actually might be a blind spot for me, but I just feel like over time, if I stick to one side or the other in games over balanced lineups, that I do better. So I will be leaning on one team or the other no matter what. And I play predominantly single entry. So I'll be on the Broncos side of the ball just because I don't see a way to. For one, I think you have to play Rashaad Penny, which we'll get to in a moment. But if you have to play Rashaad Penny, then you're going to have to trust the run game and Geno Smith to support one or two members of the Seattle offense. I just don't see that happening. So you're going to pay that price for Russell Wilson, regardless of what it is, just because you're going to have no choice. So next up is Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams is a little expensive in his own right, given that he's been splitting the backfield up 50-50 with Melvin Gordon this offseason. So he's 10,200, and he was extremely efficient in his rookie season, like topped the charts in all efficiency metrics as a rookie. Fantastic running back. It's just that in today's NFL, you do not need to ride one running back if you have two. We saw that today with DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams. Is DeAndre Swift light years ahead of Jamal Williams in terms of talent? Yes. Does it matter? Absolutely not. And I don't even know that Javonte is light years ahead of Melvin Gordon, because it seems like Melvin Gordon just will not go away. No negative reports for Melvin Gordon out of camp, as a matter of fact. So it's tough to get to Javonte Williams at 10-2. You know that he's kind of boom bust. He will get a 60-yard, rush here or there, break 5 tackles, and then you're going to think, man, I should have paid up for him. But, his ownership's probably going to be higher than Melvin Gordon's, and he's splitting half the work with him. And we don't even know for a fact if Javonte Williams is getting the high-value touches. They'll both catch passes, so they could both be paired with Russell Wilson. But there's no guarantee that Javonte Williams sees more opportunity than Melvin Gordon on this game. So maybe later in the season we'll get some more clarity, and then Melvin Gordon will be a little cheaper. But for now, given the two prices, I'll lean into Melvin Gordon for the first game with the understanding that maybe Javonte Williams will bury me. But if Javonte Williams was going to be less owned than Melvin Gordon, then yeah, we'll pay up for Melvin Gordon. But he's going to be higher owned, and he's significantly more expensive for the same opportunity. It just doesn't make much sense to play him. So that gets us to Cortland Sutton, who has been, by all accounts, Russell Wilson's favorite wide receiver in camp. Now, Jeudy hasn't played that much, so that could be, I guess, good or bad for that point. But since Jeudy has not played very much football this offseason, he has not had a lot of time with Russell Wilson. There have been reports of Russell Wilson taking Jeudy to the side, bringing him to QB meetings, etc. But that could be good or bad. I mean, that could mean that Jeudy's so far behind that he has to put in that extra work, or it could be Russell Wilson identifies Jeudy as a talented player. So he's bringing him into, those meetings and such to bring him on, like the star that you draft him in the first round to be. So Cortland Sutton's a great play at 9,400. He pairs with Russell Wilson well, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we're not on Jeudy at all on this slate. So we'll get to Jerry Jeudy as we go down the list. That brings us to Geno Smith at 8,600. I wish he was priced lower, like more of a backup. I referenced Cooper Rush was probably my most profitable slate ever. Was Cooper Rush last year, and it was nice because he was 6,000. So you could tell yourself a story. Well, if this bad quarterback produces very well, he was cheap, so he let a lot of people fit if he could just be okay. Well, if Geno Smith is just okay, he's not going to support DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, who you would like to stack with him, because there's not really a third option. We'll get to D. Eskridge as a punt, but Noah Fant has been running routes at a dangerously low rate, so you can't get just okay Geno Smith and stack Seattle. So it's really tough. It is certainly contrarian if you wanted to go there in like huge fields. Like if you were maxing the millie or something like that, I would not be opposed to 150 Seattle stacks in the millie. Could definitely see that happening, but I'm not going to be playing any Geno Smith in small field or single entry for that matter. That brings us to DK Metcalf at 8,400. So DK Metcalf had 5 touchdowns in 4 games with Geno Smith last year. I'd argue he was even better with Geno Smith, as ridiculous as that sounds, than he was with Russell Wilson last year. So this is where we look at those one-offs. Who are we going to bring back on our 4x2s or 5x1s with the heavy side being on Denver? Well, DK Metcalf's a solid bring back because he's one of those 5 for 100 and a touchdown kind of guys. So don't mind him as a bring back. He's in a weird range where you could probably pay down a little bit and have a little bit better of a lineup on the Denver side. So some people might not go there. So DK Metcalf's a great bring back for 4-2s or 5-1s. Now we're back at Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy is I think he's a great play because Tim Patrick got injured. Like, we have Jerry Jeudy as a full-time player now, and we couldn't have said that before. So the whole speculation in, best ball summer was that we weren't sure if Jerry Jeudy was going to be in 2 wide receiver sets or Tim Patrick. Now the talent gap between Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler is such that we know for sure that Jerry Jeudy will be in 2 wide receiver sets, which makes him a full-time player now. So full-time player at 8,200, still a little bit expensive, which might make your lineup even a little bit more unique if you get 1 or 2 punts in there. So Jerry Jeudy pairs really well with those Russell Wilson lineups with Cortland Sutton, which people might be afraid to do because all offseason it's been a either-or kind of thing between Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton. Well, on this first slate, you play them together and you get plenty of exposure to Russell Wilson getting to cook, which is the whole reason he left Seattle. Next, we have our favorite player of the slate and Rashaad Penny at 7,800. I really like his price. I wish he were just a little bit higher, to be honest, so that less people would play him. But given how he produced last year at the end of the season, he was getting close to 20 carries a game for the last 3 to 4 games. I know the last 3 games he had over 100 yards. I believe even one of them he had almost 200 yards. And I mean, it took us 4 years to get there, but it seems as though Rashaad Penny finally showed, hey, maybe I was a first-round running back talent, if not for all the injuries. The problem is with all of those injuries, I mean, even this offseason, he dealt with soft tissue injuries. So unfortunately, it's hard to trust Rashaad Penny in season long, of course, but we just need him for this game right now, right? That's what we're worried about. And I'll add that last year when Rashaad Penny was on that tear, there was no competition for touches in the backfield. And now we are treating Kenneth Walker as if he is out because of his hernia surgery. So Rashaad Penny has no running back competition. Later in the season, I'll be talking about Kenneth Walker being a good play. Right now, Rashaad Penny is going to get at least 20 touches, maybe even a couple receptions. I don't even want to say a few, but maybe a couple, and has pretty much all the touchdown equity on the slate. We went into pretty good detail about Melvin Gordon, 7,400. Nathaniel Hackett said it was going to be a hot hand approach. Who knows who the hot hand will be? If my money was on somebody to have the quote-unquote hot hand, it would, of course, be Javonte Williams. But more price, and I'm not positive that they'll go with Javonte Williams over Melvin Gordon in high-value situations, especially in the red zone. I'm not positive of that. I think that they should. I don't know that they will. Melvin Gordon is that veteran that might have the quote-unquote nose for the end zone that Nathaniel Hackett wants. So that's to be determined. But again, I'm just going to lean into the price discount and go ahead and probably say that he's going to have less ownership too. So that puts me on Melvin Gordon. I think Javonte is a far superior player, but maybe not this game. So Tyler Lockett's always had that boom bust tag, right? Like people think he's one of the better and best ball players, but in 4 games with Geno Smith last year, he had a game with 13 targets, another one with, I believe, 9. There was a 3 in there, but it was like 7, 13, 9. So he was a high volume player with Geno Smith. He couldn't find the end zone in those 4 games. That's okay. But he's being considered as one of those boom bust guys that will decrease his ownership. However, he's probably not that with Geno Smith. He's actually probably more along the lines of a volume receiver. Don't think your Cooper Kupp, but maybe like your CeeDee Lamb or something like that. So Tyler Lockett's an excellent play as a run back, just as DK is, and they'll probably both be around 30%. So it's just pick your poison, whichever one fits. I wouldn't lean one way or the other with DK or Lockett. I wouldn't play both of them because, again, I just don't trust Geno Smith to support both of them. Even in those games where Tyler Lockett went for 13 targets, he still barely made value in some of those games. So it's really, really difficult to play both of them together. Brings us to Noah Fant. I would have some more Noah Fant appeal if Drew Lock was starting, just because they had that connection already, even though I'd argue that Drew Lock is kind of the reason we haven't seen Noah Fant hit his potential. But given preseason usage, Noah Fant is definitely not worth 6,200. Noah Fant is running routes at an alarmingly low rate compared to his snap percentage. So they're using him, to block in line tight end kind of thing. Not exactly the type of thing that you should want from Noah Fant. So not a player that I'm going to be investing in at 6,200. Let's skip all these quarterbacks to get down to Albert O. I could try to say his last name, but I get it wrong every time. You guys know who I'm talking about in Alberto. He's 5,000, and he got a lot of negative attention this offseason, and I guess I understand. I guess it kind of worked. He got all the way to the 4th quarter, and I think multiple preseason games, if I remember the slates correctly. And Nathaniel Hackett just said he needed to see Alberto get more reps at blocking. So, okay, I guess he couldn't do that in practice. I'm not going to analyze it too much because he produced well in the time that he spent in the preseason game. So it's not something that I'm overly concerned with at 5,000. He pairs great with Russell Wilson. He's great salary relief and might have the most targets, maybe outside of Cortland Sutton, but I would not be surprised to see Alberto have the most targets of the Broncos receivers by the end of this game at only 5,000. Especially if he's going overlooked because of some of the negative attention in the offseason. I don't buy any of it, and it really doesn't even matter. The negative attention is irrelevant because Greg Dulcich is on the IR, so we're not going to be seeing any other tight ends outside of Alberto. KJ Hamler at 4,400. He's pretty much your boom bust type of player, legitimately, and he is going to be reasonably owned, maybe a little less owned than Alberto. So I would lead into the Alberto side of things for the volume, but we'll see here in a minute when I go through some example lineups that I actually like Alberto and KJ Hamler together for the mid-range salary relief that you get between the two. And KJ Hamler can be paired with Cortland Sutton or Jerry Judy or Alberto because he does not need a lot of volume to hit value. He could take one to the house for 80, and that's all you needed from KJ Hamler, and you still have plenty of volume to go around. You're going to notice I just get past the kickers and defense. Overall, if the defense is highly owned, you probably don't want to play them. If a defense is low owned, then go for it. We're just so bad as a whole, as a community in picking our defensive spots. So basically, if it's a slate where people are touting captain defense, you can probably just omit them from your player pool. Kenneth Walker, we're treating him as out. He still has an outside chance to play. If he does play, he is only 2,200, so pretty much just replace him with what I'm about to say about Travis Homer. I'm going to put Homer, Eskridge, and Dallas into a bucket before we finish off. So they're my favorite pump plays. I have no pump plays for Denver. I think that DeeJay Dallas is the best option. He's the cheapest option. He had the most touches in the preseason over Travis Homer. but DeeJay Dallas's ownership is going to be super high. And if you can fit Travis Homer, it would not be a bad idea to fit Travis Homer into your lineup, especially in large field, over DeeJay Dallas. That leaves Dwayne Eskridge, who had a few games with 3 targets last year. I think even one with 4. But the problem is none of them were with Geno Smith, so I really don't have a lean on how D. Eskridge is going to play into the Geno Smith offense. But at 1,000, he's a pretty great option. It's just that his ownership is going to get close to like 20%. We already don't trust Geno Smith. We already know that Seattle is going to run at probably the highest negative game script rate in the NFL. So it's probably better to just lean into like DeeJay Dallas or Travis Homer for their receiving equity, because we know that Penny is probably not going to be doing a lot of work in the receiving game. We're going to hit on a couple lineups, a stack from each side of the ball, probably, even though I really just don't even want to stack Seattle. But the first thing that I want to do is put Russell Wilson in at captain. And quarterback captain never gets too egregiously owned except for Josh Allen. So I always feel pretty good when I have a quarterback at captain. And then I liked Cortland Sutton here. I liked Rashaad Penny as my lone bring back. And then come down here to Albert O. Also KJ Hamler, and see what we've got left there. So you've got 5,700 to play with. You'll be picking your poison between Broncos, McManus, or Myers here. But I think this is a really good start. And then off of this lineup, of course, you could take Sutton out and you could go with Judy. And then you free up some salary there. So 6,900 there. You're not going to go with Noah Fant, though, so you're pretty much in that same range. I'm checking over to my lineup or my article for the week for my second favorite stack. Here it is. This was the interesting one that I wanted to get to. I wanted to try DK Metcalf at captain. And this is going to be one of the only times, maybe not one of the only times, but one of the rare times that we put a wide receiver at captain without their quarterback. Typically, you want to run back their quarterback. Excuse me. You've got rare situations where you've got a player like DK Metcalf who could account for so much of their quarterback production that you do not need the quarterback. And you can do the same lineup with Lockett. So you could get DK Metcalf, Russell Wilson, probably leave Rashaad Penny out in this situation. Melvin Gordon. You probably fit Sutton. Now you've got plenty to go to those 4K players that we talked about, even probably Albert O. 3,800, you'll just pick your punt play. Travis Homer, leave a ton of salary on the table in a large field, and this works out great. So you got a 4-2 here. You could even move some things around. Go from Albert O to Hamler. And if you go from Albert O to KJ Hamler, you've got 4,400, and now you're talking about a kicker, which I'm totally fine with kickers. I know some people completely omit them from tournament play. I used to do that. I used to believe that their ceiling was just way too low. However, I've been proven wrong enough times that I'm in on kickers this year. So that's going to do it for today on our Showdown coverage for Sharp Football Analysis. Thank you all for joining me for week 1, and I will catch you next week. Peace.